So we're here in Millennium Wood in Farnsfield, surrounded by the trees and the birdsong, which is the ideal setting for what we're going to talk about, which is your second event on the boat. So, Kris Worsley, thank you for sitting here in the woods with me. This is a treat. We are going to talk about this upcoming event, which is called Visions of Nature. So this is something completely different that we've never had on the boat before, and I'm really excited about it. So could you talk a little bit in broad terms about the sort of things that people will experience during the day?
Absolutely, yeah, thank you. And this is, we've just walked over from my home, which is just over on the side through these woodlands, and this kind of wood is absolutely, I think, central to the kind of thing that people will experience, because I'm coming here from, you can hear the birds are singing, and this is where I spend a lot of my time getting inspiration for a lot of the work that I do, and I want to sort of bring my interest in nature both as a pianist and as a photographer, and also as someone who works a lot with literature and poetry and bringing all those together. I want to bring this together as let's not call it an event, let's call it an experience. It's a day's experience. And of course what I think is important to understand, what you might not say, but what I think is important is this is very much actually a collaboration between us this day, that I've wanted for some time to bring together my work as a photographer and as a musician, and to do that in a way which is kind of gives rise to the magical inspiration, that kind of the real spark of inspiration that we feel, which is what a lot of my photography is about. It's what I feel what making music is to me, and to bring that together on the piano boat, which is a very special setting, and we've worked, haven't we really, quite closely together to make sure that this is not something which I can just move in, an experience that I can bring into any venue, but it's something which is absolutely suited to the piano boat. So people are going to be in this wonderful surrounding of the piano boat, going down the canal with that wonderful greenery that you have as you go down the canal. Hopefully blue skies, but even if there's rain, then that's inspiring as well. That's quite nice too. And in that setting, and of course inside in that wonderful dark wood interior that you have, and really experiencing, I think, something which is quite rich in learning about and making connections with how we listen to music when it's being performed, but also we're going to be listening to recordings of birdsong, many of which I've made in these woods or in woods around the Nottinghamshire area, and really getting people to listen and understand about that engagement with nature and the outdoors, both in terms of music and also photography and images and literature as well.
That's amazing. I mean, it's the sort of thing that, I mean, we'll talk about how it all got started, but as you say, it's something that's kind of, because you knew we were going to do it on the piano boat, it's been kind of brought together with that space in mind, I guess, and the fact that you're on the water and you have the greenery around, because we go through the Colne Valley Regional Park, which is really beautiful.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
It's very special, and as I said, I'm really excited about this because it just feels like the perfect kind of thing to have on the piano boat, because you have all these different elements, and with the normal sort of events that we do with the concert cruises, the music is very much at the heart of that, and it's, maybe I do it a disservice to say it's incidental that it's on a boat surrounded by trees, but this feels like a much more active recognition of that, of the kind of the environment that the whole thing is taking place in. And I think that's one of the great things about the piano boat, because as a listener and someone sitting in the audience on the piano boat, you feel, I think, very much like a participant, and it's that very much that immersive element of listening to music, or as I said, listening to nature, and
having that experience, that full experience of the immersion in actually what's happening, rather than just simply, sitting there and having a nice day out listening to music, it's going to, I think, feel much fuller and much richer than that. So it really, engages with people's hearts, and shows us, why the natural world is so important to us, and how it's been such an inspiration to so many artists, writers, musicians, and people for. Well, the literature I'm going to be talking about goes back about as far back as literature goes, and it's quite clear that this has always been not just something to be reported on, but just something magical that people feel.
Yeah. And it's interesting. It makes me think that all these different things are a way of connecting with what makes life meaningful, but there are just different mediums that people find to do that with, and so you've found all of these different ones to bring together into one day.
And it's really interesting, because I feel, as someone who works in the creative arts, that doing the photography that I do, it feels very much, it doesn't feel so separate from doing the music. It's just another expression of kind of how I relate to the world. Much as it appears, they're two very different careers in many ways, but I've always felt that I'd like to see what's the element that joins them together, and there's something inside of me that I feel that I can see, yes, if they're put side by side in the right way, it's almost like bringing two things together to spark a big fire. It's going to I hope be something very special.
I think so. And you said that this is something that you've been thinking about for quite a long time, about how to do this, so how far back does that go, and how did you first sort of think of putting them all together?
Wow, how far does it go back? It goes back as long as I can think, really. I mean, certainly, nature is something which has always been a part of my life, and certainly when I was a student learning piano, I played a lot of Messiaen, his catalogue d'oiseaux exotiques, and these pieces of music which directly imitate birdsong, and I was very interested in a lot of that piano repertoire. And then coming as a wildlife photographer, I thought for many years I was kind of in a similar world, but they were very separate. And it was, I think, really with becoming interested also in field recordings and coming out and making recordings in woods like this, and hearing that as being a musical experience, or a listening experience that's akin to the very deep listening that you can do with music. But I started to think, well, here's me going out to the outside world as I do as a photographer, but I'm also doing it as a musician now, and sometimes I try and do both, which you try and sort of juggling. There's something playing and I want to record it, but there's something that I want to photograph, which never quite works. But I'm aware that there's that kind of that place inside me which is wanting to bring them together, and I was never quite sure how I would do it. I sort of envisaged doing a lot of exhibitions that I've done with photography. Could I do that and play in sounds from nature, or play in recordings of my musical compositions, or does that help to bring it together? But here, actually, what you're running and what we've worked very closely on together is a whole day experience where I can really, I think, explore each of those. I won't say separately. The day will go through phases. It's like there is a sense of a flow to the day, and it's been designed very carefully around that, so that it goes from one stage to the next and kind of tells a story through the day that I hope takes people pretty seamlessly, I hope, from one medium to another, and I think is as close as I can get to expressing what it is in me that brings all those together.
Amazing. And I mean, not just a wildlife photographer, but an award-winning wildlife photographer, an amazing musician, incredible lecturer, writer. I mean, can quote reams of Shakespeare. You have all these different elements to your name. So having a day with such a diversity of different elements definitely is a reflection on you. I mean, how does that... I mean, you talked about, the music and the photography not necessarily being separate, but how do you see all of those different things as relating to you as a professional or just as a human?
Well, I think certainly a lot of it comes around as a lecturer, very much, in which I've always, working as a lecturer, I've always been very interdisciplinary with my lectures. So my lectures, my students will tell you, going back decades, have always been filled with art history and poetry and, yes, Shakespeare, which I'm a very big fan of. And I often find that when interesting people in music, trying to engage people in an interest in music, often, yes, it's very interesting to talk about the nitty-gritty, and I can do the technical analysis and all the terminology, but often it's better to explain something by talking about something else related and kind of recognizing, well, do you feel what this piece of poetry does to you? Well, now look for that in the music. Do you feel how that does? And it unlocks certain elements of the music that you just can't get to by other means. And I always think that's really interesting for actually explaining things to people, without being technical in the explanation, but actually making the light bulb switch on and think, aha, now I understand that, there is a link between, it might be the style of painting from a particular area and visual imagery, and the way that painters worked in that era, in the Romantic period, for example, where there's a great influx of nature painting, and look at what musicians were doing at the same time, and if you consider them in the same way, both tells you something about the other that you just can't get if you stick to the music, or you just can't get if you stick to the poetry or the painting, and so that's always been of great interest to me. And so I think, yes, with the music, I wanted to kind of find a way to take people to the heart of the music, or take people to the heart of the photography, in a way which isn't me giving a dry lecture about it.
It will never be that.
It will never be a dry lecture, no. But
do you know how to give a dry lecture?
I don't know. I'd like to think I could have a pretty good go, but I certainly, it comes to me from my lecturing. I've always worked in conservatoires, and which I love doing, and I've always worked with students who are performers, rather than people doing a music degree and actually trying to get an academic understanding of music, and so that's always been a challenge that I relish, because you're trying to engage people in something who just simply want to know about the living piece of music, and actually how to get to that detail of what could be a dry lecture without all the dry stuff, and make the same connections for them, make them have the same revelations, without really being so dry about it. And then from there, I've done work with pre-concert talks for some of the major orchestras in the UK, in which you're engaging, and I love that work of engaging with people who have a deep love of music but maybe aren't trained to know all the technicalities, and working out ways to relate to them actually why this music is so thrilling and special, and give them something that they don't get just from listening to the music. And so that's, I think, where that love comes about, of trying to take, what for me is a very deep studied and a very technical understanding of music, but put it across without all the technical garb, but give the richness of understanding that comes with that, which I hope I could do to, I think, someone who is a beginner in music. Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm absolutely thrilled that you're going to come and do it on the piano boat. It's just so exciting. And so that's on Sunday the 13th of July this year, 2025. It will be a full day. There will be everything that you've talked about. There will be cruising, there will be food, and it will be a day away from the world, I think. Can't wait.
And so carefully, I think, just crafted around, as I say, the piano boat itself, and I think it'll be an experience which is really difficult to reproduce anywhere else, because it's really built for that particular space and designed around that space, which is, as you know, I'm so excited about it as well.
Well, it's an honour. Thank you.
Thank
really
you.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you.